So the Telegraph has uncovered that in early 2021 there was another party in Downing Street. What's been reported is that there was actually two parties, two leaving dues, one for Boris Johnson's communications director, James Slack, and then one of the Prime Minister's photographers who was also leaving. And the allegation is that they were holding two separate leaving dues, and then as the night wore on, they ended up joining up together, ending up in the basement of Downing Street with a suitcase full of wine and music playing and dancing into the late or early hours of the morning. Now, I think the key thing that's also come from this report is that this was the night before and then the morning of Prince Philip's funeral. And that's obviously a very significant part of the story, because that's going to add to the anger, I think, that people are already feeling.
Yeah, these are horrifying stories, really, given the circumstances that the rest of the world was facing. The Prime Minister has apologised for one of these events. Is that going to be enough, given the fact that it appears staff at Downing Street were partying on more days than they perhaps weren't?
Yeah, I mean, some of the comments around this is that Sue Gray's investigation might have to figure out which days they weren't having a party rather than the ones that they were. But as you said, I think a huge amount of anger. As you said, Boris Johnson has also apologised for attending one of these parties in May 2020, although he claims that he believed it was a work event at the time, which I don't think is washing with quite a lot of opposition MPs and a fairly significant chunk of the public. In terms of whether this is going to be enough, I think the key thing we're all waiting for is this report by Sue Gray, civil servant who's been put in charge of looking into all of these events. But also MPs are going to be going back to their constituencies today. This is the day that they normally do that, head back home. And, that's going to be, I think, quite a key part of the response. Because if they go back and party members and the public express their anger over this, it's going to make their positions a lot harder to stick with if they're supporting the Prime Minister.
One person who's been notably quiet through most of this is the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak. Now, there is a suggestion that he is, and obviously this is just speculation, but perhaps biding his time for this report. Should this report be perhaps damning, do you think we could see a resignation from Mr. Sunak, which then might see more fall?
I mean, it's obviously possible. When the day that the Prime Minister apologised, he decided he was on a visit somewhere else in the country, quite handily, didn't take any media interviews. And then when the rest of the cabinet started coming out to defend the Prime Minister, he put out a very carefully worded tweet, which said that the Prime Minister was right to apologise, and now we should wait and see what Sue Gray manages to uncover. So definitely not the kind of fulsome praise that some other cabinet ministers were coming out with. So I think, yeah, as you say, a lot of speculation that he is possibly biding his time and looking to the future and maybe, hoping that he can rally the numbers and push for a change of leadership. I think the longer this drags on, the harder it's going to be for him, because he is the Chancellor. He's a senior member of the government. And just by association, his own reputation is going to be damaged by this.
Yeah, some of the journalists in the lobby also suggesting that Sue Gray's investigation, this is the senior civil servant looking into these parties, that her probe won't go as far as suggesting that there was any law breaking going on here. If that is the case, do you think, from your position, that actually what we might have is a situation where the Prime Minister says, well, I told you so, we didn't break the law, we got it wrong, let's all move on? Will that wash?
I think that's the strategy they're going for. They're hoping that Sue Gray's report doesn't maybe go as far as people are hoping. It's also an incredibly difficult position for Sue Gray. She is a very well-respected civil servant. She's served under previous governments, Labour governments, and she is known for being a pretty tough investigator, and that she will uncover things. But she is also a civil servant, and I think that is also in everybody's minds that it would be very unexpected for a civil servant to be the one who took down a Prime Minister. We've obviously had the Met Police now issuing this statement yesterday, I think to incredulity from a lot of people, that they are not going to continue with the investigation unless Sue Gray uncovers evidence of criminality, which just adds the pressure onto her investigation. But even if she comes out and looks at maybe the broader picture of drinking culture in number 10 has been one of the things that's been suggested that she might flag, I still don't think that is going to help dissipate the public anger over this. And we still don't know whether there is more to come. Her report is due hopefully in the next couple of weeks, but this has been dragging on for months. There could be things that come out after her report is published, and that would put us back into an impossible situation again.
Yeah, we must just take a look at the opposition in terms of perhaps how Sir Keir managed the situation during Prime Minister's questions. Your take on his performance?
I mean, this is the strongest kind of response we've seen from Labour. Keir Starmer's taken a very different approach to these kind of things than Jeremy Corbyn did. Jeremy Corbyn called for the resignation of the Prime Minister fairly frequently, almost to the extent that after he'd done it so much, it kind of took the sting out of it. Keir Starmer has waited and waited and waited, and then this week finally said that the Prime Minister should now resign over this issue. I think they've probably been waiting, trying to judge the timing, and after it emerged that Boris Johnson was at one of these parties, obviously we had the email. I think that was crucial as well, this bring your own bottle or booze email sent out to staff. That was really proof that this wasn't just a work gathering, and that really undermined Boris Johnson's defence. So I think that was what the opposition were really waiting for, was something tangible, so they could really press the Prime Minister over this and call for him to go.
It truly is head-in-hand stuff, isn't it? In terms of those people who are being wheeled out day on day to face the likes of you, the spokespeople for the government, are they exasperated by this? Can you see in their faces that they literally are getting to the point where they're thinking, we've got nothing more to say?
I think as more comes out, it becomes much harder for them to defend this. And they're consistently relying on this defence that the Prime Minister has, outside of these parties, done things like delivered Brexit is one of the lines that they keep coming away with, pointing to the vaccine programme, using that as a kind of counterbalance to the allegations. But the scales are tipping with every new revelation that comes out. And I think this becomes harder and harder to defend. And as I said, if they go back to their constituents and see this anger, we've already seen some local party Conservative associations, one has voted a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister. These things will start to have an impact on individual MPs and ministers. If they think that their own seats are looking harder to defend, if they're seeing public attitudes shifting massively away from them, then they'll have to make the judgment of, do we want to continue with Boris Johnson in place, or do we throw ourselves back into the kind of chaotic situation of trying to find a new leader, especially in such a complex time for the country?